I'm a 32-year-old woman named Soraya. For most of my adult life, I worked in professional kitchens. 11 years in the grind, line cook, sous chef, banquet lead, you name it. It was never glamorous, but I loved it. The heat, the rhythm, the unspoken teamwork. Then, a car accident ended all of it in 10 seconds flat. I was in the back seat when we were rear-ended at an intersection. The driver who hit us was texting and didn't even brake. I walked away alive, but with 2 fractured vertebrae and a torn disc. Surgery followed, then months of physical therapy. Just getting out of bed was an achievement for a while. I had to relearn how to move without shooting pain down my legs. I couldn't stand for long, couldn't lift anything heavy, and couldn't twist my torso without feeling like my back was going to give out. Kitchen work? Completely out of reach? Or so I was told. While I was recovering, everyone in the family kept telling me to take it easy and focus on healing. Everyone except my sister, Maris. She's 34 and runs a high-end fusion restaurant that local food blogs can't shut up about. Sleek place, lots of marble and mood lighting, and staff that look like they came out of a magazine. She's one of those people who succeeds at everything because failure doesn't exist in her vocabulary. Only weak people do. A few months into rehab, when I could sit comfortably for longer than an hour, I asked her if she had any kind of work I could help with. Something light, admin work, inventory logging, even ingredient prep if she was short-staffed. I told her I wasn't trying to take over a station, just wanted to feel useful again. She looked at me like I'd asked to borrow her wedding ring. Then she said, "People like you don't belong in kitchens anymore." That stuck with me. People like you. What did that even mean? Crippled. Slowed down? Not pretty enough for front of house? The final blow came during a family dinner at our parents' place. We were halfway through dessert when someone asked me how recovery was going. Before I could answer, Maris laughed and said, "She's doing great. Honestly, I think she's found her calling as the family's permanent couch ornament." Everyone laughed. I didn't. After that, I stopped talking about my progress. But I didn't stop working. I set up a mini test kitchen in my apartment, slow cooker, hot plate, prep table with wheels, and a ton of pillows strapped to a stool for my back. I started teaching myself how to cook again, adapting recipes and movements so I could do them with minimal twisting and bending. At first, it was messy. I dropped things constantly, burned myself, cried out in pain more than once. But every week, I got a little better. My breakthrough came when one of my physical therapists mentioned how bland the clinic's catered lunches were. I offered to bring something the next day, just a few containers of saffron rice bowls and citrus-marinated chicken, cooked in small batches. They loved it. Word spread. By the end of the month, I had standing lunch orders from staff, patients, and even their family members. I wasn't charging much, just enough to cover ingredients and gas, but the real reward was knowing I could still cook for people. Then one Thursday, the local farmers market posted on their socials that one of the food vendors had canceled last minute. I called in, offered to fill the spot for the day, and prepped as fast as I could. My booth was called Fork Mercy. I sold out of every item in 2 hours. People were coming back asking for seconds I didn't have. I went home with empty trays and a full heart. A few days later, I got a text from Maris. "No greeting. Just don't embarrass yourself." She must have heard from someone who saw me at the market. I didn't respond. At our cousin's wedding the next weekend, she pulled me aside near the bar and told me, "You're not built for real service work anymore. Just accept it." Then she walked away before I could say anything. I cried in the parking lot, not just because she said it, but because some part of me believed her. I'd spent so long being told to play it safe, to settle for less, that I didn't realize how small my world had become. And I was angry at her, at myself, at everyone who acted like I was supposed to just disappear now. So I used that anger. I took the last of my savings and bought a used food truck from a guy who used to run a taco stand. It needed work, but the bones were good. I named it Bellyfire, got the permits, insurance, and inspection certificates done one by one, designed the layout to minimize bending and heavy lifting. Every shelf was within reach. Every piece of equipment was handpicked for speed and ease of use. I hired no staff. It was mine, and only mine. Opening day, I parked directly across the street from Maris Restaurant. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't post online. I just rolled up, set up my chalkboard sign, and opened the window. The sign read, "Free meal if you say something mean about that place across the street." Before I even turned on the grill, people were lining up. And Maris? She saw it all from her restaurant window, right before she stormed outside. By the time I fired up the grill on day one, the line had already wrapped around the sidewalk. People were reading the sign, laughing, taking photos. A few started throwing playful jabs at Maris Restaurant across the street, just to claim their free lunch. I didn't expect it to catch on that fast, but then again, I also didn't expect Maris to come storming across the road, like someone had set off the fire alarm in her kitchen. She didn't wait in line. She marched right up to the service window and demanded I shut the whole clown show down immediately. I leaned against the counter and asked if she was here to order lunch or just here for the free drama. A few customers chuckled behind her. One of them asked if this was part of the experience. Maris ignored them. She pointed at the sign and accused me of stealing her customers, said I was freeloading off her reputation. I reminded her I was literally giving away food for free, not exactly running a rival empire. A woman in line muttered something about how the food truck smelled better than the fish she got at Maris' place last week. Things escalated quickly. People started filming. Maris didn't yell, but she talked fast and sharp, the way she always does when she's cornered. She said I was bitter and trying to ruin her. I said nothing and just handed out another chicken shawarma wrap through the window. She walked off in a huff, nearly bumping into a man carrying 2 lunch trays. A few people clapped. I didn't encourage it, but I also didn't stop them. An hour later, my phone started lighting up. Our mother sent a message in the family group chat, "Soraya, what the hell are you doing?" Our aunt dropped a popcorn emoji under it. My cousin sent a screenshot of a video from someone's Instagram story with the caption, "Best lunch break ever." I muted the group and kept cooking. By the next morning, I I started hearing whispers from customers that Maris staff were telling regulars I had no real culinary experience and that the truck was just a hobby project run by someone with a grudge. It didn't take long for word to circle back. One woman even showed me the receipt from Maris Place and said the hostess suggested she try the real food, not the revenge truck. But it backfired. Customers started posting online about how they'd had rude service at her place or how the wait times were insane. A nurse told me she waited 30 minutes for soup last week and got cold broth with no apology. She held up her food from my truck and said, "This gave me lunch and validation." That gave me heartburn and regret. That night I couldn't sleep, so I started remembering things from when we were younger. I thought back to when I was 16 and asked Maris to teach me how to fillet a fish. She didn't even look up from her phone, just told me to Google it. That was the way it always went. If I asked for help, she made it feel like a burden. But if I got something right, she'd act like it was luck. 2 days later, Julian showed up. He used to be her chef, the guy who held that place together behind the scenes. He ordered a veggie rice bowl and gave me a fist bump through the window. Said he quit months ago because she ran the place like a dictator and no one lasted more than a few months under her. He said what I was doing was smart, efficient, something real. That same night, I rebranded the containers. Just a little sticker that said, "Made with spite, served with love." People went nuts over it. Some even started collecting the stickers. One guy brought his own Tupperware just to get a new one. I started handing out extras to anyone who gave me a good insult about my sister's decor choices. A few days after that, I got an email from a local TV channel. They wanted to do a feature called Sister vs. Sister Culinary Clash. I passed. For now, I didn't need more attention, especially the kind that might get me painted like I was running a grudge war. I just wanted to keep serving food. Then Maris tried again, this time by going to the city and filing a zoning complaint. She claimed my truck was blocking visibility to her storefront. But I'd already double-checked every rule, talked to every official, mapped out exactly where I could park. My location was legal and compliant. The city responded to her complaint by confirming I wasn't breaking any rules. At our nephew's birthday party that weekend, she refused to sit at the same table as me. Made a big show of standing in the kitchen and checking her phone every 10 seconds. Our dad just looked at me and said, "Let her eat her feelings," before digging into a slice of cake. By the end of the week, I'd started recognizing familiar faces. A nurse who came every Tuesday. A teacher who brought her lunch club. A UPS guy who dropped off supplies from my vendor and offered to help load them into the truck. Even when I wasn't charging, the tip jar kept filling up. People appreciated it. They said so. I didn't tell Maris how much I'd made. I didn't need to. She saw the line every day when she looked out her window. It started with a text from my friend Andy. She sent a photo of Maris restaurant chalkboard. Today's special, smoked fennel pulled jackfruit on sweet corn tostadas. That wasn't just a coincidence. That was my signature dish. The same one I'd been testing and tweaking for months. The same one I sold out of 3 times last week. I checked my files and pulled up time-stamped photos from 2 months ago. Me testing the jackfruit batches, me plating different tostada styles, notes written in pen on a recipe card next to a can of smoked paprika. I printed one of the photos, laminated it, and taped it to the service window of my truck. Underneath I wrote, "First cooked 2 months ago. First copied today." She responded the next morning by hanging a professionally printed banner outside her restaurant that said, "Original, refined, professional." I didn't let it sit. I got my own vinyl sign made and stuck it to the truck roof. Real, resilient, retaliatory. The back and forth became part of the lunchtime draw. Customers started snapping pics of both signs like it was a roadside meme war. That same day, a group of diners came out of her restaurant mid-lunch and walked across the street to my truck. They didn't even order. One of them told me they left after hearing yelling in the kitchen. Said it sounded like she was tearing into one of her servers. They each took a sticker, snapped a photo of the truck, and promised they'd be back the next day. I decided to push the dish even further. I'd been sitting on a small batch of house-made smoky chili oil for weeks, roasted ancho and chipotle blended into a deep red, slow-simmered base. I drizzled it over the jackfruit just before plating and renamed the item Tostadas de Fuego. It sold out in 90 minutes. One woman asked if I was bottling the oil. I wasn't yet. That night, I came out after restocking to find the side of the truck egged. 3 smashed eggs, all concentrated on the driver's window. My truck is parked under a streetlight, and I have a small camera rigged near the front tire. I pulled the footage. The figure wore a hoodie and moved fast, but the glossy black ankle boots with a gold chain across the toe caught my eye. I couldn't be sure, but they looked eerily similar to the Valentino pair Maris wore at our cousin's bridal shower last year. I filed a report. The officer who showed up took a few notes and asked if it was a family thing. When I said yes, he just gave me a look like it explained everything. No follow-up, just a business card and a vague warning about escalating things. 2 days later, her kitchen had a grease fire. Nothing serious, but bad enough to force a 3-day closure for inspection and cleaning. I found out through a customer who worked at the fire department. They said it looked like someone let the oil sit too long during rush hour and caught a flare. No injuries, but the staff had to evacuate. Later that night, I got an anonymous message through my website's contact form. "She's telling people you cursed her place." I didn't reply, just laughed, then posted a photo of my chili oil with the caption, "We don't do curses, just flavor." With her closed, my line doubled. I had to call Andy to help me with orders. Julian, her ex-CC chef, offered to work 2 prep shifts a week. I brought him in immediately. He knew how to move, how to keep the flow tight, and he didn't waste words. He even helped rework the cooler storage to make it easier on my back. That week we introduced something new, bi-weekly skill shares. Everyone on the team, no matter the role, got 30 minutes to teach something they were great at. Didn't have to be food-related. One of the helpers taught us basic chair yoga stretches. Another showed us knife sharpening hacks using a coffee mug. It became a thing. Something people looked forward to. It boosted everyone's energy without costing a dime. A local radio station reached out and ran a segment on me for their Comeback Stories series. I didn't mention Maris by name, but but it was clear who they were talking about when they said a former line cook outshining the competition with fire and grit. My mother finally called after hearing the radio story. Her first words, "Do you really have to humiliate your sister like this?" I told her I hadn't humiliated anyone. I just didn't let Maris bury me under her expectations. That was the last thing we said to each other. I didn't hang up. She did. Now I'm expanding hours. Starting earlier, closing later. I've got a small team who believes in what we're doing and customers who come back for more than the food. I'm not moving the truck. She wanted it personal. I'll make it profitable. 2 days before it happened, I saw the flyer taped to the window of a bookstore downtown. Downtown Business Unity Brunch, celebrating local women in food and hospitality. At the bottom, it listed all the featured vendors, bakers, caterers, chefs, cafe owners. Every single one was woman-owned. Every single one was local. My name and my food truck weren't on it. I figured maybe it was just a mistake. So I contacted the event coordinator listed on the flyer. She responded quickly and confirmed the list had been curated directly by Maris and that I wasn't included because, as she put it, Maris said you weren't a good fit for the theme. I didn't ask any more questions. That told me everything. Instead of responding with another sign or snarky sticker, I went straight to the city and filed for a one-day event permit to park my truck across the street from the brunch venue. It got approved within hours. The location was perfect, close enough for foot traffic, far enough to avoid being technically part of the event. I spent that night reworking my weekend menu into something custom. I renamed everything. Outcast omelet, pettiness pancakes, no thanks mimosa slush. I even had Julian whip up a lemon honey scone we called the Uninvited Bite. The menu title, written in white chalk across the top board, read, The Uninvited Brunch. I didn't make a huge announcement, just dropped a couple of cryptic polls on my story. What would you order if you weren't invited to the party? And shared one close-up shot of syrup being poured over pancakes with the caption, You can sit with us. That Sunday morning, before the sun even finished rising, I was parked and prepping. By 7:15 a.m., there was already a line. Nurses on the early shift, people out walking their dogs, folks from the yoga studio next door. Most of them had seen the brunch promo. A few whispered that they were going to swing by both events, but ended up staying right there by my truck instead. By 8:30, I could see attendees from the brunch walking across the street just to see what the fuss was. Some came with plates in hand. Others dropped their utensils in the trash and got in line. One woman looked around and said, "Honestly, it feels lighter over here." I got a text from someone working inside the brunch. She said Maris was pacing, checking her phone nonstop, and muttering about people arriving late, or not at all. By 9:00, one of the guest speakers, a local author who had a signing table set up near the stage, walked out of the venue mid-program and ordered an omelet and slush from me. She took a photo with the truck and posted it to her followers with the caption, "This is the kind of resilience worth celebrating." A few other attendees drifted over, quieter this time. One of them leaned in and said, "I thought this was supposed to be a sisterhood. It felt more like a showcase for your sister." Another nodded and said she'd been following the story since the original chalkboard drama. They thanked me for being the real one. Around 10:15, the sidewalk crowd parted like it had rehearsed. Maris walked across the street in 4-inch heels, lips pressed tight. She stood right in front of the truck and called it calculated sabotage in front of at least 20 people. I handed a customer their order, wiped my hands on a towel, and told her it wasn't sabotage. It was scrambled resilience with a side of dignity. Someone in line clapped. Then more people joined in. Maris turned and walked away without another word. That night, I didn't celebrate. I just counted the tips, tallied the brunch earnings, and transferred the final payment toward my food truck loan. With that, Bellyfire officially became mine. No debt, no outside help, just grit, and more grit. Maris never blocked me. But I blocked her after that morning, permanently. She hasn't been able to message or call me since. It happened on a Tuesday just after I'd closed up the truck and was loading the last of the prep bins into the cooler. Maris pulled into the lot like her brakes were optional and stormed over. She had her phone in one hand and a folder in the other. Without even looking at the line of people still taking selfies with the chalkboard menu, she marched straight to me and started throwing around words like sabotage, poaching, fair, and pathetic. She accused me of actively stealing her staff, said I was going out of my way to recruit them just to hurt her. I didn't lower my voice when I told her I hadn't approached a single person. They came to me. Bulls, every last one of them. Loud enough for the last few customers to hear. Julian had been the first. He gave notice after the brunch fallout and asked to come on full-time with Bellyfire. I said yes immediately. 2 of her line cooks followed that same week. One brought his own knives packed in a velvet-lined case. The other sent me a thank you note after his first shift saying it was the first time in 3 years I didn't flinch when someone raised their voice in a kitchen. They all said something similar. Working for me was the first time they'd felt safe in the back of house in years. No screaming. No knives slammed into cutting boards. No verbal lashings for a dish being 45 seconds late. Just food, structure, and mutual respect. That Friday, I took part of our weekly profits and bought everyone matching black jackets. Lightweight but warm, embroidered on the back with Bellyfire Crew in bold red letters. We took a group photo in front of the truck and posted it with the caption, "We cook because we want to." No one tagged Maris. No one had to. 3 days later, a health inspector showed up unannounced. Clipboard, flashlight, the whole thing. Said someone had filed a concern with the city about my food handling procedures. I asked if it was an anonymous report. He didn't say anything, just gave a small shrug. I walked him through every corner of the truck. Logs, temperature sheets, hand washing stations, knife sanitation cycles. Even the mop bucket had a fresh liner. After 30 minutes, he told me I was running a tighter ship than half the brick and mortar spots he'd seen that month. I thanked him, offered him a complimentary staff pick meal, and sent him on his way with a smile. I updated our inspection certificate on the window that afternoon. The next morning, regulars started whispering, said they'd heard Maris was down to 2 kitchen staff. Someone mentioned her food tasted like resentment and overcooked rice. Another joked she'd renamed one of her menu items to "Why does my entire team work at that truck now?" A few days later, I got an anonymous letter in the mail. Plain white envelope, no return address, typed text on expensive cardstock. "You're not better than her. You're just more vindictive." But what gave it away wasn't the paper or the font. It was the faded watermark in the corner, our mother's old personalized stationery, the one she used for holiday letters and passive-aggressive thank yous. I didn't confront her, not yet, but I folded it, put it in the drawer with my food truck receipts, and kept working. The same week, we launched a new thing, staff pick menu. Every Thursday, a different team member designed the daily special. One guy made a turmeric cauliflower flatbread. Another did soy-glazed mushrooms over sticky rice. It wasn't just good, it was innovative. We sold out twice that week, and people kept asking when their favorite cook's dish would return. Then a food critic showed up. The same journalist who once reviewed Maris' soft launch 3 years ago. She ordered the staff pick without saying who she was, left quietly, and posted a glowing review that afternoon, called the food bold, defiant, and built on fire and second chances. She didn't mention Maris by name, but everyone in town could read between the lines. By the following Monday, Maris' front of house manager quit. No warning. That same afternoon, I got an application in my inbox from her. Clean resume, professional tone, no mention of where she currently worked. I haven't decided what to do with it. That evening, I printed out a new sign and taped to the truck window. "We're not stealing talent, we're offering oxygen." People lined up to take photos with it. I didn't have to say her name. The message was clear. The petition was real. Maris didn't just vent to her friends or throw tantrums in private. She went official. She submitted a formal request to the city council asking them to reevaluate policies around stationary food vendors negatively impacting local brick-and-mortar establishments. Her language was dressed up, but the intent was clear: get my truck off that street. She reached out to a handful of shop owners along the block, trying to stir support. A few agreed, probably out of pressure, or because they didn't want to get on her bad side. The rest either ignored it or quietly warned me. One boutique owner even stopped by my truck with a cinnamon roll order and slipped me a photo of the petition she'd been shown. There were maybe 8 names on it. Half were businesses Maris had previously catered for. A week later, I got tipped off by someone who worked for a council member. She said it was going to be added to the next zoning meeting's public agenda. I checked the time, the location, and the guest list. Then I submitted a catering request. Free food, no strings, just a table of breakfast wraps, iced lattes, banana muffins, and a vegan-friendly granola bar tray. Every item came labeled, "From the disruption across the street, with love." I set up the table in the lobby of City Hall half an hour before the meeting, wore my Bellyfire crew jacket, tied my hair back, and brought 3 members of my team to help with plating. By the time the council session opened, half the room was holding coffee cups with my logo on them. Right before the meeting started, one of the council members bit into a breakfast wrap and said out loud, "This is the best thing I've eaten before 9 a.m. in years." The microphones were already on. When the item came up on the docket, Maris stood and read from a printed statement. She described my truck as an opportunistic business built on spectacle and said I was leveraging family conflict into publicity. Her voice stayed steady, but her foot tapped through the entire thing. The chair asked if anyone wished to speak in response. I stepped forward with a folder of documentation: my licenses, food safety certificates, health inspection reports, tax receipts, and outreach records. I didn't raise my voice. I just listed every permit I had followed, every code I had complied with, and every community event I had contributed to, including a program we'd launched a month ago. Free lunch Fridays for students from the nearby art college. I ended by thanking the city for allowing small vendors like mine to exist, grow, and feed people honestly. Then a council member leaned forward and asked Maris, "Do you want her banned for feeding people too well?" The room laughed. One of the assistant city managers nodded and said she'd stopped eating at Maris' place because the food lost its warmth. Another council member who'd been ordering from my truck for months without me knowing spoke up and called Bellyfire an example of creative engagement, not disruption. The vote was swift. The petition was denied with overwhelming disapproval. One council member even proposed adding a commendation to the minutes, recognizing my business for its compliance and community contribution. Maris left before the meeting ended. She didn't speak to anyone on her way out. She looked smaller than usual, like the fight had finally worn through her heels. Someone sent me a screen grab from the city's live stream. The caption under the shared video clip later that night read, "Restaurant owner tries to ban sister's truck, gets outcooked and outclassed." By the next morning, my inbox was full. A high school wanted me to cater their spring fundraiser. A bride asked if we could do a brunch-themed spread for her shower. A festival organizer offered me a featured spot in their food truck lineup for summer. A few days later, I heard from a cousin that our father had commented, "They'll work it out eventually." He didn't call, didn't text. I didn't expect him to. That side of the family likes to sit on fences so long they forget who built them. I said yes to the school and the bridal shower. Still deciding on the festival, but I'm leaning toward it. One of the community board organizers dropped by for lunch and asked if I'd consider hosting a citywide pop-up event, a spotlight for food trucks and independent kitchens. They want me to lead it. Looks like Bellyfire is becoming something bigger than a mobile kitchen with spite in its sauce. It's starting to look like a movement. The morning started slow. It was the first quiet day I'd had in weeks. The truck was parked, but I hadn't opened the window yet. I was prepping solo. Julian and the rest of the crew were across town setting up for the weekend festival I'd agreed to headline. I was restocking ingredients, organizing containers, and cleaning out the fridge when I noticed movement outside. Across the street, standing near the edge of the sidewalk, was Maris. No clipboard, no sunglasses, no phone out, just arms folded, watching. No yelling, no marching, no dramatic hair toss. She wore flats, a plain hoodie, and jeans. Not the usual high-polished look she carried like armor. I kept working, waiting to see if she'd turn around. She didn't. She crossed slowly. When she reached the truck, she asked if she could come inside, just to talk. No cameras, No speech, just talk. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat on the bench at the back of the truck where I usually eat lunch. She didn't look up. No eye contact, just folded hands and short breaths. Then she said it. I was wrong. You're better at this than I ever gave you credit for. I didn't say anything right away. I asked what made her say that now, after everything. After the chalkboard wore the petition, the staff losses. She said her breaking point came last week. 2 of her remaining employees had to be let go. The reviews had dropped. Tables were staying empty even on weekends. And people, old regulars, even, had started telling her the food didn't feel the same. People don't want to eat in a place run by someone angry, she told me. Then she admitted something I hadn't expected. She said watching me succeed made her feel exposed. If I could do it, after everything, then maybe her bitterness, her excuses, and her control weren't justified. She said she felt like the mask she'd built around herself started cracking the moment my truck pulled onto that street. Then she dropped a piece of truth I'd never known. After my accident, when I was in rehab and out of work, our parents had quietly helped cover my rent and bills, but they hadn't done the same for her when she opened her restaurant. They told her to stand on her own. She said she resented it for years and buried that under perfectionism, control, and eventually me. I let the silence sit before I responded. And then I said, you could have just said that. Instead, you kicked me while I was already crawling. She didn't argue. Then she asked if I'd be willing to do a one-day collaboration. No drama, just food. A crossover event, Bellyfire and her restaurant, side by side, 1 dish each. No tricks. Just a way to reset the narrative. I told her I'd agree under 3 conditions. 1, it had to be on neutral ground. 2, my team got full credit and name placement. 3, she didn't get to control the menu. She nodded. We picked a small community plaza downtown, rented side-by-side booths. She served a roasted fig and goat cheese tart. I brought back my jackfruit tostadas with smoky chili oil. My line stayed longer, but hers wasn't empty. A few people even bounced between both. By the end of the day, we toasted with lemonade from a nearby stall. No hugging, no staged photos. Just 2 women, standing in the sun, nodding. She went her way. I packed up the truck. I didn't park outside her restaurant again, not because I'd given up, but because I didn't need to prove her wrong anymore. That part was done. I had already proven myself right.